Good morning and welcome to the Walk-Off, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack.
Ooh, ooh. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. We've been texting "woot woot" back and forth every time we have. I don't know. It's
And
just
now
like
it's becoming part of our speech.
it's
Yes.
yeah. It's like when something's funny and you say "LOL." That's basically
That's
what
what we
just
just did
happened.
here. Yeah, that's what you just did.
All
That's
right.
great. Honestly, we do appreciate everyone who is tuning in. We are in the dead of a lockout here, so we are still out there making content, putting things out there, but I do feel like we're scratching the bottom of the barrel a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, it's getting there. That's for sure.
I don't know. Like, I sure hope some stuff starts to happen here. We are going to obviously talk the CBA negotiations, and a lot of stuff came out in the last day or two about where they're at. Ketel Marte, we're going to deep dive him, see where he would fit on this Blue Jays lineup. And we have done this before with Ketel. I know that right when the season ended, Adam and I had a little fun game where each of us chose one guy that we could go out and get in the trade market that would help and fit on this team positionally and be a big ad. And Ketel Marte was the guy that I chose. So we have touched on this a little bit, but we did think we'd dive a little bit deeper and talk that. We also, and it's interesting because Adam, you mentioned at the end of the mailbag once we had hit stop, you said, "What do you think about this team if they do nothing else?" So I do want to briefly touch on that,
Hmm.
and then we're also going to go into Cedric Mullins, of course, the All-Star for the Baltimore Orioles, 30 for 30 guy last year, 30 stolen bases, 30 home runs. He is battling with Crohn's disease and came out talking about it yesterday. So we'll deep dive into all of these and a little bit more here. Really excited about what we did yesterday. We had a really fun interview with former Toronto Blue Jays World Series champion with that 2011 St. Louis Cardinals team. Mark Zepchinski joined us, and it was a great little interview.
Hmm.
He really kind of
Opened up.
Adam, the part that really I enjoyed is when he started talking about, like, he was 24 when he went to the Cardinals when he was traded from the Jays,
Hmm.
and he shows up and he's talking about what an incredible presence pitching to Yadier Molina was like,
Hmm.
and he was calling him a seasoned vet at the time, which is so funny because we are 11 years later, and Yadi is still catching and still helping young pitchers find their way. So that is going to be up. When do you think we'll release that? This weekend, Adam, or maybe at the beginning of next week?
We should probably do it over like Monday or something next week.
Yeah, but keep an eye out for that. Honestly, if you're just a fan of listening to fun baseball stories, it was great. Filled with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Our socials, I did wish to quickly touch on that. Obviously, we do the mailbag every single Tuesday, and if you'd like to get a hold of us, the best way to do so is on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. You can do so on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast, and you can still join our Discord for free. The link is going to be in the show notes. One last tease before we get into this. So we had our inaugural long toss
Yes.
episode last Sunday. And this is kind of Adam's brainchild here. It's a really fun format. And what we've decided to do is to bring in broadcasters, ball players, content makers on the Blue Jays and baseball scene and just chat baseball and Blue Jays in a group format, a roundtable format. And last episode, we had Taylor Sacedo, we had Craig Ballard, and Joel Hey Kami from TikTok. We had Sean from Jay's on the Couch. And man, it was fantastic. It was such a blast.
A lot
And
of
it
fun.
went so much smoother than I was expecting.
I know you were pretty worried about having potentially seven people
I just felt like it could
stepping
be
on each other.
chaos.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a
like,
lot of potential for chaos. There's potential for chaos with the two of us.
yes,
I
there
mean, we've
is.
definitely had our fair share of episodes with a third person where we kind of look back and go, "He,
Boy, if we were trying to talk at the
yeah,
same time as them, we couldn't pull it off as well as we were.
yeah, exactly."
But we are really excited about this show. We are going to do episode 2 this Sunday. So this is what we're doing every single Sunday at 6 Eastern. It runs for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, long form kind of sort of thing. If you need to be a baseball nerd, maybe. But please join us because this week we actually have another member of the Toronto Blue Jays, Kirby Sneed, lefty in the bullpen, coming on to give his insight. We're excited to be joined by Karen Sutar. She is the host of Sunny Side of the Dome, which is a podcast that is out on Jays on the Couch. We're going to be joined by our good buddy, Craig Ballard again, another TikTok Jays content creator, and he was on the inaugural episode and was fantastic, so we're excited to have him back. And is Hey Kami joining us too, Adam?
Yeah, Joel's coming back.
Joel's coming back as well, so we're excited for that. Again, please join us. We do that live, so you can actually kind of like get your content, your comments and your questions in while we're doing it, and then Adam releases it afterwards.
Let's just highlight that for a second. We should pay a little special thanks to Mark from our Discord, Drinker of Beer. You've probably heard us read some of his comments in the past. He has stepped up and has taken on a little bit more of a workload to help us out with the behind the scenes sort of stuff. So he is actively on the show with us on Sundays, and his whole job is to go through the Discord and find comments from you guys. He's sitting there in the chat, the live chat on YouTube those Sunday nights. So like, even if I'm not directly and Scott's not directly responding to things that's happening in the YouTube live chat, Mark is there, and we are throwing to him when, as much as we can, and hopefully we can get some more interaction from the chat the way we have been in the past.
And we knew it would be a slow build. We were very thankful for the 20 listeners that did join us live. I know we've had, probably close to 300 views on it now, but which we always appreciate anyone who's going to click and nerd out with us baseball-wise, especially in the dead of February with hope floating away as to the spring training starting on time. But no, we do appreciate you. But the folks who joined us live, that was awesome. And so feel free to do so again this Sunday. That would be great. And there's no football this Sunday, so we're not.
Nothing to compete with.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Should we get into this?
Let's get into it.
Did you have any other housekeeping stuff to add here before we do that?
Nope.
Okay, let's talk. Let's talk these CBA negotiations briefly anyways. It doesn't inspire much hope. So yesterday started in the morning with sources coming out and saying that MLB told the MLBPA they will not make a counteroffer from the MLBPA's proposal at their last meeting. And
that's a good sign, right?
This is only 2 days after the MLB came out publicly saying they will make a counteroffer. So that's great. Love to see that. Hours after that happened, Jeff Passan came out and tweeted that Major League Baseball today requested immediate assistance of a federal mediator to help resolve the sports lockout. Sources told ESPN. Under the request, the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service would help assist with the proceedings. So a mediator comes in and tries to find a middle ground. And this isn't like arbitration, right? So this isn't where they put the two proposals down and then the mediator picks one or the other. They are trying to find ground that they can both kind of move towards and find a deal that way. And it did give some fans some hope. I know I was on Twitter. There were a lot of people that were like, this is great. Maybe this is something that we can hang our hat on, right? The MLB is really trying to bring things together and get stuff done before spring training. I am not one of those optimists. And I mean, Adam, you have been pessimistic about this from day one, which is funny because we have been blessed to have the entire Sportsnet baseball crew basically join us at one point or another. And from Shai Davidi to Ben Nicholson-Smith to Arden Zwelling to Jamie Campbell, they all said they feel like the season will start on time. Now you, Adam, looked into your crystal ball and said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So here are the reasons why this doesn't excite me in any way, this mediation stuff, okay? So number one, this would be a voluntary thing for the players and owners. And MLBPA has already come out and said they will most likely turn this down. So both sides still need to agree to what the mediator thinks. This isn't a hard, like this is an arbitration again where once
I was
once
just
they
gonna
say
say
something, it happens.
there is a important distinction there. Like, it's the term is binding arbitration, so it's basically you agree to whatever the decision is before the decision is made, right? And that's how like contract negotiation works for arbitration eligible players, right? Is that's just the way it is whatever the arbitrator says goes. There's no
The two sides put their
appeals, there's
numbers
no
in.
going back. It's
It's
just
one or the other. Exactly.
this is basically more of like both. I mean, I think it was Trevor Freeman sent us that video on Instagram where it was like quick, it was a silly meme of like quick peek at how the negotiations are going. And I don't know what the context was for this video, but it was just
Yeah.
like two young guys, maybe 19, 20. They didn't say a word
Flipping
to
out
each
at each
other.
other.
But they're just like
Just
full
like
double finger right in each other's faces.
right in each other's face.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the mediation is just like, it's just so bitter right now. I think we just need
Oh,
to get some
two
some
school
talks where the response isn't, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
two schoolyard kids are fighting and they bring in the teacher. This is basically the
Exactly.
equivalent.
Exactly.
Secondly, my pessimism comes from this is truly, in my opinion, just a show to gain support from the fans. This is so when games are lost down the road, Manfred and the owners can point to February and they can go, "Look, hey, we tried to find middle ground. We even said we'd bring in a mediator, but
Yeah.
but the players wouldn't budge." And I mean, former MLBPA head Don Fair, who, I mean, Don Fair's garbage, but nonetheless, we can put that aside. But he did come out, and this was from 2019. He was talking about the mediation that happened in 1994-95 with that work stoppage in the MLB. And his quote was, "It was a joke. It had no value. Zero. And there were all kinds of agendas at work in the mediation that had nothing to do with the agendas of the parties trying to resolve the dispute. Mediation doesn't work." This is the last head of the MLBPA. So does that instill hope? Not really. And the truth is the owners are playing games that are only detrimental here, in my opinion. This is only going to widen the divide, is really how I see this. This is not a good show of faith.
It's not.
This is not truly an attempt to find middle ground.
No, and like you said, I agree with you. I think that this has real potential to backfire and
Yeah.
make both sides kind of dig their heels in, especially if it is viewed by the PA as like kind of a pseudo offer and just a good PR play. Like it's like, okay, well maybe if we were meeting or willing to meet in the middle on this issue or that issue, well maybe now we're not quite as willing to agree on what the middle might mean anymore, right? Like,
Plus, look at what the owners have done. They start this thing with locking the players out. They don't initiate talks for 6 weeks, buddy. 6 weeks. And then they say they're frustrated with the lack of progress. like, give me a break. And I can't stop thinking about the words Rob Manfred wrote in his letter to the fans when MLB imposed this lockout December 2nd. I've actually got it here. We hope that the lockout will jumpstart the negotiations and get us to an agreement that it will allow the season to start on time. And that just feels like the biggest bold-faced lie we've all ever heard at this point.
well, yeah, absolutely. I think if everybody's being honest, I think the owners want to miss games, and I know that kind of sounds backwards because they're going to miss out on ticket sales and blah blah blah, right, and all that revenue. But I do feel like like
That's when the real squeeze.
That's
on
when the real
players will
squeeze
happen.
comes, and yeah, because owners are still gonna be billionaires come April, come May, come June, whether games are played or not, right? Um, Players, however, don't start getting game checks if games aren't being played, right?
Not well locked out, that is for sure.
So hopefully they've all got savings. I know the MLBPA, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere they do have a stipend in place. Like I think it's $5,000 a month or maybe a week, that's to be paid out to like everybody in the union. But once game checks are lost, that immediately becomes another, not just a pressure point for the owners to use on the players, but it also becomes an extra bargaining chip, something to be traded in negotiations in the owner's favor. Is, let's just say we get to June and games haven't been played yet and we've lost 60 games or whatever the math works out to, whenever that happens to be. Let's say we've lost 60 games, and now on top of negotiating terms of peaceful surrender, the players are also saying, well, despite we're only going to have a 100-game season, we want to be paid our full rate for 2022, right? So
And then they can fight over that again.
then they
yes.
can fight over that, and I feel like that's just another opportunity for the owners to they kind of already know they're going to make that concession, but if we come to a deal right now, there's no concession to be made. Whereas if it waits and games are lost, now it's just one more concession that the owners, can make that are already willing to. So that means they're going to get something in return, right? So that might be the difference between a 12-game or 12-team playoff and a 14-team playoff, right? So
that's a really good point, Adam. That's a really good point. And I think if you look at this squeeze, we'll call it, that the MLB is doing, that the owners are doing to the players, this doesn't affect, obviously, like look at the Jays. Like this doesn't affect George Springer. Who this affects is Kirby Snead.
Yeah.
This affects Taylor Saucedo. This affects Tim Meza. This affects the guys that aren't making $150 million on their contract, right? Like George Springer can absolutely afford to sit out till June.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the minimum salary for MLB players is something, I think it's $575,000. So like this, it's not chump change.
Mm-hmm.
However, these guys who just made the jump, this is who it's going to hurt. Again, we brought up Saucedo and Snead, right? Like they were brought up halfway through the season last year. So they're not, they're being paid by every major league game they're there because they're on the 40-man roster and they've got options and they're being sent back and forth. So these are the type of players that it's hurting the most.
Even Alek
and these
Manoah,
are the players
right?
come. Yeah, exactly. Even Alek Manoah. These are the players come June are like, boy, I sure would love to see a paycheck soon,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm pretty pessimistic. And when we first talked about this early December, I know that I said I didn't feel they would lose games too, and you were like, "Oh, buddy, you are just Mr. Sunshine." But now I'm with you. Like I don't see us getting.
Well, we're
anywhere without losing
theoretically
games.
11 days away from when pitchers would have reported, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And from all of the rhetoric being put out there right now, they are miles apart still. So this isn't like they're calling in a mediator because they're close, but they need to just move a few things. This is like there is a giant Grand Canyon divide between these two, and we're going to lose games. There's no doubt in my mind we're going to lose games. But on that incredibly down, upsetting note, let's talk some stuff of what could happen once this lockout does end. I know that the Blue Jays still have some areas of need. Obviously, that infield is one of them. And we did talk off the top of the show there that we each picked a player that would be fun to see them go out and get in trade. And Ketel Marte was my pick. And I think we're going to really get into that here. We were actually commented. We were actually complimented recently in the comments of our YouTube a few times by a few different listeners for our content staying fresh and not just throwing out potential trades and acquisitions once the lockout ends. Well, we're going to throw that out the friggin' window here.
Yeah, you jinxed it.
Yeah. Ketel Marte is a superstar. Let's start there. He was an all-star last year with the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is a kid who's 28 years old. He plays center field. He plays second base. He's under control for 3 more years at an average salary of around $5 million a year. I mean, the cost efficiency on this guy makes him incredibly valuable because he's going to allow, if the Diamondbacks wind up giving him up, he's going to allow whatever team goes out and gets him to still make some big splashes because $5 million a year is absolutely nothing, and the fact he's under control for 3 years is incredible. I'm not even convinced the Diamondbacks will give him up. I mean, their window of contention doesn't really fall into that next 3 years, right. But we're going to need to wait and see what these CBA negotiations come out with. Again, we've talked about how different things could be if there's a salary floor implemented, that sort of thing. So this is all a lot of hearsay. However, it's February and a lockout, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
One thing I do really like about this guy is that he does play center field well, and I think that fits really well with the Blue Jays, especially after watching the season George Springer just had. And George Springer is going to play a lot of center field this season in 2022. I think he is going to be healthy. I think he is going to be the guy that they went out and paid big bucks to do. However, if you're going to get Ketel Marte, you're going to need to give up a haul. So one of those outfielders, whether it is Lourdes, whether it is Teoscar, I am doubtful that it would be Grishik, but if one of them are moved, the ability to plug Marte into center field and move Georgie Boy to right, who is an excellent right fielder. In fact, George Springer is probably a better right fielder than he is a center fielder. It does allow that extra versatility that the Blue Jays do love so much. Second base, obviously, an area of need. Now, not as much of an area as need as third. Would you feel all right with Espinal and Biggio and them trying to piece together third base again next year? Are you fine with a player of Marte's ilk, if you will?
Well, I know we were going to talk about it today, the idea of what if this team makes no additions when the lockout ends. That's the big question, right? Third base is definitely our hole.
It's our primary need, for sure.
Oh, and you want to add Marte here in this theory? Who would be out? Would he be outfield for us? Would we trade for him as an outfielder, or would we move him into second base?
I think he would play second base the majority of the time. However, it would allow them to put him into center field. So instead of Grishik being the guy that they're plugging into center when Springer is taking a day off or whatever, maybe it's Ketel Marte who would they.
So, what I've always dreamt of has been Kevin Biggio as our second baseman for 120 games a year, and then outfield for 40 games a year. So, you want to do that with Ketel Marte instead. Improvement at the plate, no doubt. Yeah, I don't hate Ketel Marte at... I'm saying that name wrong, I'm sure.
Either you are or I am.
Well, both are, maybe. He's listening right now, just rolling over. He's like, you got Mark Rashemsky right, but you can't say Marte. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Third base. If this is the one move we make, like, we're allowed to have one hole and still be okay.
Yeah.
Right? We're allowed to have 2 holes and still be all right.
Financially, it would offer the flexibility at the trade deadline to bolster third base if they did choose to do that. Because, again, we did mention his price is only $5 million a year on average, so very affordable.
Yeah, very affordable. Like, I think he'd fit right in. The $1 million question, though, is Espinal and Biggio splitting time at third.
I know there's a lot of fans who say just give the job to Espinal.
There are a
And
lot
then
of fans
Biggio
that
would
say
be
that.
our utility bench guy who you'd move all over the field.
Man, I don't know. I'm so
Yeah.
torn on this. I'm so torn. I mean, ooh, this is, I'm sure, great listening for anyone listening to the podcast, listening to me go, ooh,
No, but it
it's
does
tough.
leave a big question mark if they don't do anything else. Now, obviously, I think one of the reasons for them to go out and make a trade like this, and it would be a blockbuster, like we're talking something like Lourdes, Aralvis Martinez, Jordan Groshans, Otto Lopez, Sam Roberts, CJ Van Eyck type of deal. You know, like we're talking a major league player like Lourdes. We're talking a high end prospect like Martinez, and maybe a second one like Groshans, and then 2 to 3 mid range guys. Like it's going to
That's
be
a,
pricey because you're getting him for 3 years of control
yeah.
at an incredible price. So I think the mindset behind doing something like that would be that you do have money to go out and get, let's say, a Kyle Schwarber, right? Somebody who could be that lefty bat, or maybe, make another deal for Chapman out of the A's. I don't know, right? But it does give you more flexibility if you're going to go that route, if you're going to give up
Is
prospect
Marte a
capital.
switch hitter? Am I reading that correctly?
Is he a switch hitter? I thought
According
he
to
was a righty
Baseball
only.
Reference, it says he throws right and bats both.
Oh,
So,
I thought he was a righty. Well, that makes him even more valuable, in my opinion.
yeah. 2019, he finished fourth in MVP voting.
Wow. Like
Played
he is. He's an all-star. He's a
144 games.
perennial
Like, that's a
all-star.
legitimate MVP recognition. It's not the 60 game shortened season where he was just hot
Yeah.
for 2 months. Like, it was a full, he played 144 games. He hit 32 home runs and had a batting average of 329. Like,
Wow.
that's legitimate. Last
What
year,
were
again, hit 318. So,
And he hit 318 on the Arizona Diamondbacks when with nobody protecting him in the lineup.
yeah. Yeah. No, good. The price tag scares me.
It's probably more than what it would cost to get J-Ram because you have that extra year of control, and he's even
Ooh.
cheaper.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, that's where the price tag scares me away from making a move like this is because that was really the initial shock factor on the Jose Barrios trade was like giving up Simeon Woods.
2 top 5 prospects.
Yeah, giving up Martin. It just felt like those are two less trade chips for like a major, but in hindsight, Barrios is a major piece that we added, right? So,
Especially with the re-upping his contract like they did, yeah.
but I mean, we just talked last week about like go easy on the spending. We got to save some for Bo and Vladdy, and it's just like, well, go easy on these trades because, like you said, we might need to spend something at the trade deadline, right? Like if we just totally empty things out for, I don't know, a second baseman. That's a
No, it's true. That said, though,
lot.
elite guy, and maybe it is time to put some chips in. I mean, they already did it once, so maybe it is time. We'll see what happens here, but let's switch gears and talk about what we think this team could do if they do nothing. What do you think?
Well, they've already done plenty, so that's good.
Kevin Gausman, big ad.
Big
His
ad.
starting
Kevin
rotation looks
Gausman.
good.
I guess maybe the simplest way to put that is let's just call it a net even on the pitching front because we did lose Robbie Ray. Obviously, Robbie Ray had a better year, Cy Young winner. You can't discount the value of having the literal Cy Young winner on your team is, but I think it's a pretty 50-50 toss-up who has a better season in 2022, Ray or Gausman, right?
I would say you're correct there, yes.
So let's just say that cancels itself out. We did lose Simeon. That's a big hole.
Big hole.
What else have we done?
That said, George Springer did only play 80 games, or maybe it was 78 games last year. He didn't
Okay.
play he didn't play half a season. It was just under half a season. So if he's healthy, that's going to help.
That is going to help. But are there any other major moves that I'm missing?
I mean,
We
no.
lost Simeon.
They
We
added Garcia in the bullpen.
Yeah, we added essentially the same starting pitcher at the start of the end of the rotation. So it feels like on paper, so far, we've lost 40 home runs
Yeah.
and a Gold Glove. That feels bad. That when I think about it like that, that feels like
Substantial.
that's less than 91 wins.
Yeah.
We are 44 home runs fewer than 91 wins. Whatever that works out to, that's how it feels. That being said, everyone else is 1 year older and one step closer to being in their prime. Danny Jansen, I'm expecting a breakout season from. Bo Bichette, I think is going to have.
A big season.
I think he's going to be getting MVP votes from Bo Bichette this year.
I love that
I
prediction.
think
Okay, well
as
let's
long as
let's
Vlad
put a
stays
number on
healthy,
it.
he's going to be good. I think the progress that everyone else is going to make in their development, I still have confidence in Kevin Biggio. Maybe not confidence, optimism in Kevin Biggio. If he can be healthy and can contribute, I think that's enough to make up for what we're going to lose in Marcus Semien. So I would say even if we don't add anyone else or any other pieces, no trades, no free agents. I'm not saying that I don't think we will. I still think we will.
Yes.
But if we don't, worst case scenario, I still think we're a 90-win team.
That's right where I am too. I was going to say somewhere between 88 and 90 wins if they do nothing is kind of my prediction there, which isn't enough. I mean, last season showed that 90 wins is not enough. However,
Although, with expanded playoffs, it might be enough.
that is actually a very good point. So I think this is probably a playoff team if they expand playoffs. Obviously, they better be.
They have to be. Yeah, it would be a
But
disaster if they expand playoffs and we don't make it.
and this is a fun exercise in just tossing the ball around and seeing what it would be like if they didn't do anything personally. And I know we're both on the same page of this. I think there's no way that happens. I think that this
No
front
chance.
office truly does believe that this is time to put some chips in and get some stuff done. And this is the window for winning a championship. And I think they're going to do that.
Look,
But
as
I
we
think
sit
if
here
they,
on February 4th, I feel like they've already got at least two trade and or signings lined up that they're ready to put the
yes,
blue ink on as soon as the
yeah,
lockout ends. I don't know necessarily that they're going to make both, but here's what I think. I think they have one blockbuster either signing or trade that is their 1A, and then they also have like a 2 or a 1B that they've also worked out, and it's a matter of, are we going to do just this one or are we going to do both? And I feel like, some of that will depend on what other teams are up to, obviously, but also that tax threshold, if that continues to, if that ends up going up and there is a little bit more. I know that they're not people are going to say, well, they're not a luxury tax team anyways, right? So the tax going up doesn't affect us, but it does, because if it goes up, it's going up for the Red Sox and Yankees, and then we have to kind of keep up with them.
exactly. And
So
I do think that this team is going to be right around that 180 to 185 million dollars this upcoming season, which will be the highest payroll that they have ever had. And I do think that in the next
whoop, whoop.
couple years they will push 200 million dollars.
Yeah. If we go into the season with a $185 million payroll and this team starts out the way that it's looking like it could potentially start out, I wouldn't be surprised if we, make a few trades, and trades that bring us right up to that tax threshold, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason that we aren't a $210 million payroll is because
Mm-hmm.
you know you got to account for some wiggle room when it comes to injuries and whatever, right? So if we just spend for the sake of spending just to get to the absolute max, and then something bad happens, now we're screwed, right? So
And I'm with you there, and I think this is something that Shapiro and Atkins do well. And I mean, this is something that Anthopoulos did when he was with the Jays and at the helm of their front office, was he always saved a little bit of room for the trade deadline. And this is something that has been happening in this Toronto Blue Jays organization since 2014, and I think we're going to continue to see that happen. So whatever you see that number at the beginning of the year, I think you can feel pretty confident you can throw another 10 to 15 on there by the end.
yep.
All right, buddy, let's end on this. This is such a cool story. Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles and their lone all-star came out recently.
Stop. Can I just pause you right there? Lone
Yes.
all-star. So every team gets an all-star, whether they deserve one or not. Sorry, Pittsburgh Pirates fans. I just want to point out, I know the Orioles sucked. Mullins deserved to be an all-star last year.
100%.
So let's just
Well put.
clarify that for anybody that didn't follow the Marlins or isn't familiar with I said Marlins, the Orioles. Anybody that didn't follow them and they think that he was just like a token, well, somebody had to go and he was the best guy on a bad team. No. 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, absolutely deserved to be an all-star. All right, I just want to clarify that. Now let's continue.
No, you're right, and that is elite. And it is so rare to see somebody with that sort of speed steal that amount of bases and also have the power that Mullins showed last year. And what's really interesting that I didn't even know about, and Mullins kind of kept to himself, is that he had been battling this extreme stomach pain in 2020 to the point where he truly, I mean, Trey Mancini was going through so much stuff with the cancer stuff that he had actually wondered if he had cancer himself. They were doing all sorts of tests. He was, not to get too into it, but like pooping blood and just like really,
very scary
really
stuff.
scary stuff. And this actually really hit home for me because what happened was Cedric Mullins was diagnosed with Crohn's, which for those of you who don't know what Crohn's is, basically it is a disease that is passed down through your parents and stuff like that. It's genetic, and it creates inflammation in your intestines, in your bowels. It just creates inflammation everywhere. It's a real shitty disease, and this is something that my fiance actually is dealing with. And I'll be honest, she is great now. She's out of the hospital, but for the last 2 weeks, she had an extreme Crohn's flare-up and has been in the hospital. She got out on Wednesday, and I'm very thankful for that and for all the healthcare workers who helped her with that and stuff. But this is like a really major thing, and I can't even imagine my girl being able to do the physical stuff that Cedric Mullins was putting himself through. Like, this is the thing. Mullins came out, and it was really kind of heartwarming to see because his big thing, his big push was, listen, if you're going through extreme pain, get checked. Because he was like, I was kind of being an idiot because I was just going out there and being the tough guy and sucking it up and not telling the team about it because he was at a point where he was still worried for his job. And it's funny because as soon as he got that Crohn's under control, and Cedric Mullins, everyone feels like he came out of nowhere. No one expected him to be the type of player that he was in 2021. But once he got that Crohn's under control and the pain under control, all of a sudden he flourished. Yeah. So I think it was really cool to see him come out and tell his story and to push for people who are dealing with chronic pain to get it checked and not just deal with it. So very cool story there.
Very cool. We're happy for your fiance to be out of the hospital and doing well. And like you said, I can't imagine her putting up those numbers with or without Crohn's. Giving her a hard time. So
very true. Right. I have to agree with you. All right, everybody, we're going to call it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the interaction that's still going on. I know we're in a very slow point in baseball news right now, but everyone who does click to view or tune in on the podcast have been very interactive, have reached out to us on Twitter and Instagram, have made a point of putting comments on the YouTube, and it's truly appreciated. Very much appreciate all the subscriptions. I know that on the audio side of things, our numbers have almost doubled in the last couple months. So thank you so much for that. And for everyone on YouTube who continues to click and view and subscribe, again, thank you very much. We'll see you on Tuesday, or actually, I guess Sunday for Long Toss.
Yeah.
6 p.m. Eastern. Looking forward to that. Join us again. Kirby Sneed is joining us. Karen Sutar from Sunny Side of the Dome. And then our boys from TikTok, Hey Kami, and Craig Ballard. We'll see you then. Cheers, everybody.
See you then.